Well, then, Mark, do you feel ready to go at this stage?
Yeah, I am. So that's a good start, but hopefully everybody else is. We've had a brilliant pre-season. I've enjoyed the early part of it, and then it becomes a drag. If any manager tells you they love pre-season, they're lying, because in the end it gets a bit like, come on, let's get started properly. So I think the last week's probably felt a little bit like that. I know the players are desperate to get started properly. I think it's a really good game to start with, particularly being at home against a team who did so well last year and will have similar expectations this year. But we've worked really hard. The boys have been brilliant actually in pre-season, and I think one thing that we have to recognise is we've gone for fairly high continuity with players. We've had some new ones to integrate into the squad. There's been a slight change in the staff, and the dynamic and the way in which we've worked has been slightly different. But the boys have bought into the work brilliantly. I think they arrive at the end of pre-season, fit, available. We should have everybody, hopefully, touch wood, available going into the weekend. Fit, fresh, fast, ready to go. And I think we've made improvements too. So I think that improvement will continue for the next however many weeks. But we've certainly put ourselves in a nice position to get started, and then we'll see what that looks like Saturday and in the remaining 45 after that.
Yeah, so you feel then MK a good place to start. Obviously a tough challenge, but a good challenge.
Oh, really good. I think what we know is that there aren't many games that aren't a challenge. We saw that last year, but we also showed we can compete, and we're capable of getting good results. So yeah, it's a tough start because we know, look at the first batch of games, there's some big teams in there, but then when you go over the course of a season, that's what you get. You see that throughout the whole of the league season. What I hope is people come to Cambridge this year and think that's a tough game, and that's probably what we've built ourselves last year. So we have to take some confidence from that and from the quality of pre-season that we've done into this weekend, knowing we're playing against a team that have had a mass turnaround, huge change to what they've done, but you know what you're going to get from an MK Dons team in terms of style. They've signed some excellent footballers, and it'll be a tough afternoon for us. However, I think it's one to look forward to. The fact that we're playing at home, and I'm sure the supporters will be there in good number and good voice, and hopefully we can get off to a positive start.
Yeah, they've had big changes, but do you feel with identity, if we can put it that way, that they've got the continuity?
In some ways, yes. They've got some key players that have remained. But I think there's 13 signings in and a similar number out. Probably a change of shape a little bit in the way in which they're playing, but I think the principles of their game will remain the same. We know that they like to dominate the football. We know that they're a really patient team. We know they've got real goal threats and inventive, creative players in the attacking part of the pitch. So we know in that sense that it will be a tough afternoon for us. But what we hope is we can show some of the similar traits we showed in the home game last year against them, where I thought we were excellent. And we're at our creative best, and we give a good show of ourselves with the football.
You talk about the continuity for you guys, and obviously the desire to improve as well. How much room for improvement do you feel you've got with this squad? You talk about how it's largely the same group of players. You've added a few in, did really well last year. How much can you add on top of that?
Well, I think every individual's got a ceiling that's higher than where they've been so far. So I think that physically there's more to come from us. It's certainly in the case of a lot of the younger players. There is certainly more to come technically and tactically from us. We should be, as a team, wiser and more experienced for last year's challenges and know what makes us a good team and where we need to improve. We've done a fair bit of work on that at the end of last season to look at the statistical side and the analysis of that, but also to see the work in pre-season, in games, in sessions that I've seen a real improvement in, and now we've got to put all that together going into the game. But that's something that I think is an exciting challenge, and I think there is scope for us to continue developing through the season and continue evolving, because you have an idea of what good looks like for you, but you haven't played anyone yet. And when you then see what are the challenges that the opposition bring you, the first month of the season you don't know where everyone's coming from. Pre-season can be different from club to club, and the first month of the season the window's still open, so squads are going to still evolve. So probably until you're 6 weeks in, you get to that double figure game, you don't see any real shape of how things are going. What we've got to try and do is get as many points on the board early as we can and give ourselves some confidence in our performances that show that we can do what we did last year.
Have you got a particular turn of phrase to encapsulate your aims for this year? Because the past couple of seasons you've tended to have a catchphrase or a slogan. Is there anything that would fit this time?
So I've run out of slogans, Swanee. I think 2 years in I've used all my slogans up. We had confident underdog last year. In some respects that doesn't change, because I'm still sure we're an underdog in the level, and the expectation on us might have risen a little bit from last season. The confidence side of it I certainly want us to be, but I think for us better never stops is probably the idea right now, and I've probably nicked that from the Olympics somewhere, but that idea that what we've done's fine but our story isn't finished yet, and That's what we have to keep striving towards now. What's the next chapter for us? Is there more in us? Can we create more positive results, brilliant memories for our supporters and for each other, and can we have another season that shows we are a really competitive team at this level? Because fundamentally that's the starting point for us as a club, we know that, but it's a pretty depressing target to set that at the beginning. I want to see is better possible from last year, and that's, I think, performance wise firstly is where we've got to try and make those improvements and then see what that reflects in results and positions come the end of the season.
Yeah, and people will talk about second season syndrome and the difference between having the momentum from a promotion and then having another season at the same level. Do you set much store by that? How do you look at that?
Well, in the last 8 years or 7 years, 28 teams have made the jump. 6 didn't make it to a second season because they either went up or down. 11 finished higher in their second season and 11 finished lower by an aggregate position of very, very similar. So I don't really think it's a thing. I think it's a thing people talk about, but it's only a thing if you make it a thing. For us, we're going to try and get better, try and improve, and see if we can take ourselves to another jump.
And with that, I think we can see one of us did our research and one of us didn't. With the team news you mentioned, it's all looking pretty good. Dimmy obviously missing out last weekend, but he's okay now.
Yeah, we had a couple that haven't trained early this week, so hopefully we can get on the grass Thursday, Friday with everyone, and then we're hopeful that those players that we've had a little bit of a few days down with are available and fit, and also that no one gets anything in the next 2 days. We need to be sensible that we go into the game and we've got to train with intensity, but we also don't want to break or injure anyone in that period of time. But there's a nice amount of enthusiasm in anticipation for the season, and hopefully if we can get a full deck of cards going into it, I've probably got 4 teams I could play, because I think the strength of the squad's excellent and I'm really excited by what could be this season. And I hope the players have got that real hunger and ambition too, and I'm sure they have.
Yeah, and particularly necessary this time around in the 5 subs. I suppose in some respects doesn't sound like the most major rule change, but the character of games, how you can use your options off the bench, it'll be interesting to see how it develops.
Yeah, I think it's significant. When you speak to people that played in the days of 1 sub, it seems to have come a long way. I wonder what's next, but we are at full capacity in our dugouts now, so we can't really afford any more changes. We've made the changing room bigger, so we've got room for that. We've future-proofed the dressing room, but 5 subs is certainly a change. I think we've got some good depth and some like-for-like replacements which will allow us to have that continuity. You would imagine that the rule change favours the bigger clubs with the bigger squads, but I also think we've got some really good depth in our own squad this year, which will help us utilise those substitutions and perhaps make more than we have done in previous years. So I think that's something to look forward to and see how that adapts games and changes. I wonder how much it adds to the added on time at the end of games and how often 5 get used, but it will certainly shift and change things a little bit. Certainly the days of finishing at 4:45 are long gone, because it seems to be 10 to and it could be 5 o'clock now, so we'll just see what that means. But in the main, I hope it's a positive change for us.
Yeah, and just to finish, your new man Okunabire adding to your attacking options, a guy who's got a good record at this level and looking to get back on track.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the reality is, I think if he was fit and flying last season, he wouldn't be here. But we've got a player of really high pedigree who we think athletically adds to the group of players in the attacking line, that helps us become the team we want to be. I think he's a goal threat. I think in attacking positions we've got some excellent players and some really good attacking threats, and that's quite exciting because the depth of that unit is so strong. He's going to be a little bit of time away from being able to play, because we know that, and we've taken the punt that, all right, we'll get him fit, we'll get him back to full shape, and if we can get him flying and make the same dent on other players that we have with him, he'll be in for a good time here, and he'll entertain us and he'll help us win some games, which is what it's all about.
Yeah, and will he be part of that flexibility in your front line as well, in that he has a certain skill set, I guess, but you managed to make all of your front players quite versatile?
Yeah, I think we've got wide players that can play either side, forwards that can play wide, and that attacking central midfield position. So I think the fact that if we call that 4 positions, we'll have 8 or 9 players that can chop and change around those. I think that will leave us really strong in game and between games. Certainly when you have a number of Tuesday games that we could have, and the quick turnaround of games, to be able to change those players and have a freshness about us will not only help us physically going into games, which is sometimes where we've suffered not having those changes, but it will also help us in game and create real competition throughout the team, and that's something to be excited by.
Cool, that's great for me.
Mark, according to the bookies, you are the underdogs and possibly struggling to stay up, but that's not a tag that's ever bothered you before.
No, and I understand it as well. So it doesn't really bother us at all. We just crack on and do our thing. Everybody can say what they want. In the end, it doesn't really matter what the predictions are. It's what we do that matters. So we've just got to prove ourselves right. It's not about proving others wrong, really. Just got to prove ourselves right, that we think we're good and we think we can keep improving and get better. And that's what we'll be striving to do again this year.
Just really quick one. Mamadou, how was that?
He's gone for a scan yesterday, so we're waiting on the outcome of that. So we don't know yet. He's crutches and a boot, but it'll be a little bit of time. But we don't know the outcome until we get the scan result. Hopefully today.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Mark, just on the challenge of League One, how much of a challenge is it going to be to replicate or even better the success of last season?
Yeah, I mean probably the same. I think people say this year looks a really competitive and the strongest league, and they said that last year. And I think before we were in it, they were saying that the year before. So I think the reflection is it's just a really strong and tough league. And we know, I've mentioned this enough times, that the league looks like two leagues, and we know which one we're in. So we've got to try and be as competitive as we can in that and take as many points along the way as we can. But who knows what's possible? You can make all big statements at the start of the year. I mean, we just have to see where we are as we go. I think we've got some confidence from last year, and I think we've got some quality added to the squad, and I think we're improving still. So who knows what's possible with that? But at the same time, we know how tough a challenge that is. We also know that if we're not at it, that the games can be very, very difficult for us. And some of the big teams in this league, you look at every prediction forecast, there's probably 12 teams that expect to get promoted or certainly be in the playoffs, which shows the demand of the league. And obviously only 3 can. So it's going to be super competitive, huge pressure on a lot of teams this season. It's not really on us, which suits us. We can just go and play and see what we can do.
Yeah. How do you go about continuing the momentum of the last couple of seasons as well?
Try and get better, strive for more all the time, push things differently. We've trained a bit different, we're working a little bit more in certain situations, we're analysing things to greater length of detail, we've added depth and quality to the squad. So I think all of those things can push things, and then in the end it comes down to a mindset of whether you're satisfied with where we're at or you want to try and strive for more. And I think we've got a group that are quite ambitious to do more.
Who didn't train at the start of the week?
That's a secret.
That's a secret. With Dimmy, is he back in contention, is he?
Dimmy's training today, so
Yeah.
as long as he comes through the next few days, he'll be fine. Yeah.
And Mamadou, do you think that could be quite a long-term one?
Who knows? I'll wait until the scan on that one. He's I don't know, no idea.
With Greg Taylor, is he still your captain for the upcoming season?
Yeah, Greg's club captain. Obviously, he has been for, well, certainly the whole of my time. So yeah, nothing changes in that respect. And obviously, Digby was majority captain last season because of the number of games that we played. So we know in both of those we've got brilliant leaders, and I think there's a handful of others actually. I think the armband chopped around a few times last season, certainly in cup competition. So I think we've got a number of players that can wear it. But Greg Taylor is certainly club captain. Paul Digby will wear that armband as well at times, because if Greg's not playing, and Diggers is obviously the next one to do that. So but I think we've got quite an exciting group of leaders here.
With Fajiri, what type of player is he, and where do you see him fitting into your team best?
Anywhere in that attacking line, really. I mean, he likes playing centrally, but he's been really effective wide. He's got pace and power to beat people. He's a good finisher. His movement's excellent. So I think he'll be. I think he's an excellent addition if we can get him back to where he was before his injury. So that's the challenge for us and to him. That he's missed a long time, and we've got to help him get fit now and get fresh, ready for a new season. That's going to take a bit of time, but as and when we do that, then hopefully we've got a really good player on our hands.
And where does that leave you in terms of your transfer business now?
I don't see anything else happening right now.
Nothing's up.
No.
Okay. What about before 31st of August? Do you think possibly?
I don't see anything happening, to be honest. No, unless anything wonderful comes up. I think we're pretty happy with where we are.
Yeah. Cheers, Mark.
Mark, with how the fixtures come thick and fast, it's easy to gain a run of form. Do you think if it all clicks, you could identify yourselves as one of the teams vying for the playoffs or better?
I think anyone who thinks Cambridge are vying for playoffs is a little bit mad. I think we know where we are. Who knows what's possible if you get into a good run of form, but I don't think the first 5-10 games really reflect anything. But what we need to do is whatever number of points we're going to need to finish in a higher position is a very big number, and that's a long way from zero. So all we've got to concentrate on is the next 5 games and see how many we can get and break it down like that. And it's fun this time of year because everyone makes predictions about where everyone's going to be in 46 games with very little knowledge or understanding or context around that. For us, it's like we just play the next few games. So it's football cliches this time of year, really, but at the same time, that's the reality of it. So take on the first game, see if we can get anything from it, and then go from there.
So do you take any notice of what the pundits or the bookies are saying, or is it just?
Oh
they don't
yeah,
know
it's
anything what's
really
going on?
fun watching it and seeing who puts people where. It's just interesting. But I mean, what does it mean? There are now, because of social media, 1 million pundits. So like, it's just, some of it's irrelevant completely. It's just one person's opinion of a team. Like, I wouldn't dare try and predict the league because anything can happen. But it's quite funny when you see yourself in the bottom lot all the time, and that's just probably where our story is. And we have to just continue developing and building. It's also keeps your feet on the ground as to where we are genuinely and where people see us. And there's an ambition here that wants to be seen better than that. But in the end, whether you've seen it or not doesn't really matter. It's just whether you are, and that's what we're working on.